YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back and only a couple days away from the NBA draft. Today I have my prospect rankings, my top 10 players in the NBA draft. And I like this class. Usually in NBA draft, there's only a few guys that'll be solid starters or a little more than solid starters right away. I think we got about 7 or 8. I really like that top 7, that 8th guy real close. So I really like some of these guys. Not that I don't like anybody else 9 through the rest. I like those guys, but there's some top tier guys in this draft class, and it's really growing on me, and I can't wait for this draft. It's a very interesting one with all the storylines as well. So when we go through each of these guys, I'll kind of give you the potential teams I think they'll land. I'm going to give each player, each prospect will have 3 teams, and I'd be surprised if that prospect didn't land on any of those 3 teams there. So we're going to go 1 through 10. We'll start at 1. Right before we get started, though, please subscribe if you haven't quite yet. We got sports content daily here at the Goat House, specializing in the NFL. We cover the NFL in the offseason and then full coverage during the NFL season. We got you covered this NBA draft and free agency as well. Number 1 player in the draft, no surprise, it's Zion Williamson. Like I said, I'm giving 3 potential landing spots for each player. We don't really have to do 3 for Zion, but I thought I would keep it consistent here, 3 teams for each player. So the Pelicans have the first pick. That's where I expect him to go. That's where he will go. And if he doesn't go there, then obviously he'll go 2 or he'll go 3. So that's where those 3 teams come into play. 6'7", 272. He's clearly the number 1 player. I think he's the most dominant player. We've seen him when he's out of games, how much Duke misses him, but it's more when he's in games and what he's capable of. One thing I really like about him is he's put on size and it's straight muscle, and it shows us his ability to continue to grow, to get better shape, and it can help develop his game. And it's scary to think he can actually become more athletic than he already is, and being that athletic with such like a solid build too is ridiculous. You don't see a guy like this every day, a do-it-all guy. Some people concerned about his shooting. I think he started to get better at that. I think at the right moments he can hit his shots, whether it's a three-pointer. The free throws may be something he needs to work on a little bit. But no need to overthink anything. Zion Williamson is the clear number 1 elite prospect that you don't see every day. Number 2, I think, is the clear-cut 2. I think Zion's the clear-cut 1, and I think Ja Morant is the clear-cut 2. A point guard. Again, a point guard you don't really see every draft here for Murray State. Yeah, he played against weaker competition. It's not really a weakness to me. The only weakness is, some turnovers are pretty, maybe a little too much turnovers going on with him. So 6'3", 170. I compared him to Russell Westbrook. Not going to be Russell Westbrook right away, obviously. Maybe he never will be, but I think he has that same style. And he's really a do-it-all point guard too. You see him pass, 24.5 points per game, 10 assists. He can pass. 3-point percentage you wish would be a little higher. I think it was around 36. And then he got almost 6 rebounds per game too. So he's kind of a do-it-all point guard. He brings a lot. We know how athletic he is. That Florida State game was his best game. The toughest challenge of the year, and then going against a really, really good defending team. Just a really good team in general, but a really good defending team with some good bigs, some solid players, and he's going through them and over them to get to the basket, and that was very impressive to me. So he's my number 2. It's pretty clear. And then there's the potential teams there. The second pick, we expect him to go, and that would be the Grizzlies, but who knows, maybe the Grizzlies go with a guy like R.J. Barrett. So then the Knicks, I think, wouldn't pass on him, even though right now it doesn't sound like they're going point guard, but they could, and I don't know if they'll be able to pass on Ja Morant. And the reason the Pelicans are last here, because that would be with their 4th pick. So basically with this one, it's 2, 3, 4. He will not get out of 2, 3, 4. I think he'll go to the Grizzlies. If not, he'll go to the Knicks. Number 3, where I might surprise a lot of people, I'm going with Deandre Hunter. And I think people are really just forgetting how good Deandre Hunter is. He's a top-tier defender. Zion is probably the best in this class, but maybe on-ball defender, maybe Hunter's a little better. So Hunter's an elite defender in this class. Now, what do you usually get from the defenders, that aren't the top tier, like clear-cut number 1 picks? They probably can't shoot as well. Zion, he needs to work on his shooting a little bit too. But he shot very well, and people forget. And, he can get to the basket too. He could drive to the basket. So DeAndre Hunter out of Virginia, You look at his three-point percentage, it was 43 points. So we'll call it 44% three-point percentage. And he, like I said, he can drive to the basket, got the rebounds, got the steals, on-ball defender. He's great at that. And 15 points per game. And we started to see him play better in the bigger moments. And those are the players I really like. We seen him in the national championship, was big time, hit the clutch shots. I like Deandre Hunter a lot. Like I said, there's a clear 1, there's a clear 2. And then really 3 through 7 is pretty darn closer than people think. But I like DeAndre Hunter at 3. I think people just assume he can't really shoot, and they just don't really think, he could shoot. And his number 1 trait is a defender, but it's crazy because he can shoot and he can get that ball to the basket. And I like Hunter at my number 3 spot. Knicks, Pelicans, and Cavs. That's, I think, his landing spot. I'm really looking at that Pelicans-Cavs range of 4-5 is what I'm looking at. So, I think it's between the Pelicans and the Cavs. I'd be shocked. I mean, I guess trading could shake some things up, could push him back. But the front offices and the scouts of these teams have to see what I'm seeing here. A complete player. So I don't think he gets by the Cavs. I'm leaning towards Pelicans, Cavs. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. So number 4, I have R.J. Barrett. And don't get me wrong here. I like R.J. Barrett. I like his game. He's more than a good player. He's more than a good prospect. But at the same time, I think he's overrated a little bit. I think people are hyping him up a little too much. He does everything well, To me, he's not super flashy at something. I know it's a different sport. It depends on the sport. But for basketball, I'm looking for more of the flashy guy, but I also want to see a guy that can be coached, and it can be a do-it-all player, which is like him. But a lot of people list him at shooting guard. Is he athletic enough? He's pretty athletic, but is he athletic enough for the shooting guard position? And then can he defend the small forwards in the NBA? So that you could say the same thing about the shooting guards. Is he athletic? Is he quick enough, fast enough to guard maybe the top tier shooting guards? He can develop that. He has a pretty solid shot. His drive, that's right. I'm not in love with his drive. I guess his finishing's pretty good. When he's, I guess, contacted pretty, under contact, I guess, under the hoop, he can finish pretty well. But I don't think his moves are really anything spectacular down there. But again, he can shoot, he can defend. He's a good player, so I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea here. I just like more of a guy like DeAndre Hunter's game. But Barrett, 22.5 points per game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. It's a good stat line. 31% threes. That could be a little better. I think people think he's a better three-point shooter than he actually is. I like him more at small forward. I know some people like him at shooting guard. I'm going to say more of a small forward. He's my number 4 player in the draft, and it's most likely he'll go to the Knicks at that 3 spot. But a lot of people like him. There's some people out there that say he's the best player in the draft. I don't know if any NBA teams do, but the Grizzlies at 2, I think will take into consideration, but he won't get by the Pelicans at 4. My number 5 player in the draft starts to get real tight here. Jarrett Culver from Texas Tech. And he's really close to R.J. Barrett for me too. I think more smooth than R.J. Barrett. The way he dribbles, the way he moves, his shot. Pretty clutch at the end of games. Good length. He's a shooting guard, though. For a good length, I don't think he has the strength to play the small forward position, but that's okay. I think he'll be all right at the shooting guard position. I think he can shoot. Really the only thing we've seen him go against, like, better defenders, better competition, unlike the Big 12 defenses. And then he I don't want to say struggled, but they slowed him down a little bit, but still a very good player. I just like the way he moves. So 5th player on my board, potential teams. Look at the Pelicans at 4, the Cavs at 5. And then we skip the Suns. I think the Suns are just really locked in on one of those point guards. They're not looking for a shooting guard here. So the Bulls at 7 is the very latest he'll go. But it starts to get interesting because I had a lot of guys here with that Pelicans Cavs range. So one of these guys are bound to drop a little bit. So maybe Culver does drop down to the Bulls, and that'd be pretty insane. But do they want to hang on to Levine, or they can possibly play both? That'd be interesting, very interesting. So Culver's my number 5. Number 6 is Darius Garland, who I almost want to put higher. He could possibly be number 4. He's that close, and I like his game a lot. He can move, he can dribble, he could shoot. Really, what keeps him down at 6, what really separates him, is the MCL injury and the lack of passing, lack of assists. Doesn't really facilitate super well. I mean, you could see he kind of has it. I don't think he'll struggle too much at it or get like a bunch of turnovers or anything. He's just more of a scoring first point guard. Which he's very fun to watch. I know he was hurt, but if you go back and watch, very fun to watch. Really had to carry that Vanderbilt team, and they're absolutely nothing without him. Pretty good size, too. You watch him play, and the way he plays, it's almost like only the smaller, shifty guys can play like that, while him being 6'3", very, very impressive. I think that's a big reason these teams really like him. Pelicans, Suns, and Bulls. And, right as I was going to record this, I see that the Knicks are showing pretty strong interest in him. I still don't think the Knicks go with him, but we see teams really like him. So we look at the Pelicans at 4 if they want to get their point guard in here and possibly trade Lonzo Ball. That's still a possibility. The Bulls have actually been rumored to want to trade for Lonzo Ball still. And the Suns and the Bulls are teams that are really looking for their point guard. So Suns and the Bulls are the teams I really look out for. I think Garland could be a guy somebody could definitely trade up for and get. Talking about Darius Garland's stat line, we didn't talk about that yet. 16 points, 4 rebounds, only 2.6 assists. So that's a little scary. That's really the weakness along with his injury. But 48% threes, so a point guard that can really shoot the ball. And I think he creates his own 3, too. That's the most impressive, with his dribbling and his moves. He really can create his own 3. And you don't see that a lot, especially a creator like that for himself at 6'3". So I think that's why teams are really liking him. And he's apparently 100% healthy right now, too. So a guy to look out for, a guy I almost want to move up a couple spots because I really like his game. But because, they're not super glaring weaknesses or anything, but a little more than a guy like RJ Barrett and Jarrett Culver. Number 7 is Cam Reddish, who's growing on me more and more. This guy's going to be a better NBA player than, well, you would hope, but he's going to be a better NBA player than the year we saw in college. He's got great length, but does he have the build to play small forward? He can shoot. He can shoot better than everybody thinks. There was so many times where he'd finally touch the ball for the first game. Somebody would just throw it out to him and kind of a last-second shot. You have no choice but to shoot it, or it's because he's touching the ball for the first time a game. He feels like he just has to get his chance here and shoot the ball. So they weren't the best looks. He wasn't shooting the best look shots. And I think more sound basketball, more technical basketball, Reddish will be much, much better. Super athletic too. I think he'll be a really good shooter in the NBA. I really do. Another guy. That's what I said in the beginning of the video. Pretty much 3 through 7 is for me. I think closer than everybody else. There's not a big difference between. You look at the 2 Duke players besides Zion. There's not that much of a difference for me, NBA prospect wise, and RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish, or Jarrett Culver and Cam Reddish. So, and then Darius Garland, and even though they're 2 totally different type of players, and DeAndre Hunter. Everyone's that close to me, and that's why I like this class. Reddish, for me, you look at the Cavs, and then, I think that's the earliest so he'll go, but the Cavs could be deciding between one out of Hunter and Culver. So, but maybe there's going to be teams out there between Hunter, Culver, and Reddish that have Reddish 1 or Reddish 3. I really think so, maybe 2. So there'll be a mix. So the Cavs could be the earliest. We skip over the Suns because I think it's a possibility, but I think the Bulls, if a guy like Darius Garland's gone, I think they can go Reddish. And then Hawks, who have 2 picks coming up very shortly after those teams like the Bulls, definitely have a chance. The Wizards are another team I'd take a look at, keep an eye out for. So 4 teams, really, I'd be shocked if he didn't end up on one of those 4 teams, unless somebody kind of sees what I see and more, that he's going to be an excellent NBA player and just throw the college tape away. Maybe he's a top 3 player on somebody's board. It wouldn't completely shock me if he was like 2 or 3 on somebody's board up there. So we will see. A couple more players to get to. Number 8, like I said, the 7 are my clear 7, but number 8 is pretty close, and it's Coby White, the point guard out of UNC. I like his length a lot, 6'4", 191. He's about 6'5", actually, 6'4 3/4, I believe. Just not as flashy as a guy, well, obviously like a guy like John Morant, but a guy like Darius Garland too. But Coby White can play. He was the key to that North Carolina team, in my opinion. Not the best shooter compared to maybe some of the other guys. Take a look at some stats. I mean, he shot 35% from three. Not great, not terrible. 16 points per game, 4.1 assists. He's a good passer. If you watched him, you would think that the assists would be a little higher. To me, good length, pretty good IQ. It's just not super flashy, so that's why he's 8. Potential teams: the Suns, the Bulls. Back to those point guard teams. Suns and the Bulls are those top teams looking for point guard. Obviously, besides the Grizzlies, who are almost a lock on John Morant. But kind of going back to, they could take Barrett. They can. Something I just thought of now, the Grizzlies, remember Tony Allen, one of the best on-ball defenders, all-around defenders we've seen in a long time, and Deandre Hunter brings some of that and a shot that really Tony Allen did not have, so maybe the Grizzlies would fall in love with that. Not saying it's going to happen, and then going back to past drafts, pretty much any draft in any sport, it's never as what we think. There's always surprises at the top. One surprise shakes up the rest, so who knows? But back to Coby White, yes, Suns, Bulls, and then Hornets, another team, if they think they'll lose Kemba, they can grab him. But I'm thinking the Suns or the Bulls are definitely possibilities. There was some rumors that the Suns guaranteed Coby White the draft pick, but that could be smoke because the Suns know some other teams like the Bulls who pick right behind them are after Darius Garland. I think Suns and Bulls, I think their number one choice for point guard would be Darius Garland, Coby, or maybe John Morant if they can get up that high, but I don't think it's possible. Coby White would be next. So he's at 8. So a little bit of a gap after 8, I think. All the rest, there's still a lot of good players, a lot of players that I like. But number 9 is going to be the French player, Sako Demboya. And I got the chance of watching him recently. He's pretty fun to watch. Some of the competition, you start laughing, some of the teams that he played. I think he had a lot of steals, a lot of fast breaks and fast break dunks because the lack of dribbling ability on the other team, players dribbling off their own foot. I don't know if anybody else watched, but pretty funny. So the competition was on the weaker side, but you can kind of just see him. He can move, he can dribble, and it's just athleticism is just crazy how he just gets to the rim, and it just looks effortless at times. Could develop a little more of a shot, but can shoot. Listed at 6'9", 210. Some people think power forward. I think a small forward spot all day. I guess maybe a stretch 4 possibly, but I like him at the small forward position. Very flashy, a lot of upside. I think a lot of the foreign players that haven't really worked out just lacked. Most of them, it seemed, the ones that were bust, most of them seem like they just lacked athletic ability. You go back and think about it, some of them just IQ, or a lot of them just couldn't really dribble. It's kind of just a catch and shoot or catch and post up down low. But I don't see any of those weaknesses in Demboya. I've kind of made rules for myself in the past, like foreigners most likely wouldn't take him because there was so many busts. But then the last few years, Giannis, I liked his tape a lot. So I kind of really changed my opinion on some of them. They got to kind of check those boxes, that they have athleticism, have some IQ, can control the ball, and then Demboya can do that. So look at the Hawks and the Wizards mainly in that range. Hawks got quite a few picks there, 8 and a little higher, and then the Wizards are right behind them. So I mainly look at those teams. I don't know if he gets by the T-Wolves pick, so that's why those teams are up there. And then player number 10. Tough choice between quite a few players. Could go with the other Gonzaga player, Hachimura, too. But I want Brandon Clark because I love watching him play. I love his game. Do-it-all guy, and he's at 6'8", 207. I guess that's the weakness because he plays almost like a power forward because he's not the best shooter, but really can do it all. But is he going to be able to play that power forward spot and guard those NBA power forwards at 6'8"? I think he can do it. I also think he can play the small forward spot. I think he'd be a very, very solid rotation guy for year one, but then be a starter. I think he's a key player here. I mean, you see the blocks that he gets and not having, he doesn't have the greatest length. He's got some length to him, obviously, but the blocks, the rebounds, very smart, high IQ player. Potential teams, I think the Wizards the earliest. I really like the T-Wolves for him. I'm hearing the T-Wolves could trade up, so I don't know if it would be for Clark. And the Celtics, I like a lot for him, too. I don't think he gets by the Celtics. They got quite a few picks there, too. So those are the teams there. But Brandon Clark, Very fun to watch. Very, very fun to watch. Sometimes he tried to control the game, take the ball up a little bit, had some turnovers, and he was good at it at times. But, I like his game. A do-it-all guy. Maybe one of those guys that won't be, like, super flashy or, stat-wise right away, but he'll get there. He'll get there. A guy that will help your team. That's the best way to explain it. Help your team in many ways right away. So that's my 10. Obviously, there's some good guys outside. Bull is very intriguing. His length, and he actually has a jumper to him. Just can he stay healthy? You would like him to put on a little more size, a little more muscle, I guess, or weight maybe. So that's another guy. Jackson Hayes I like a lot too. He's very close to top 10. Romeo Langford I like. I think he'll be a better pro. Shooting-wise, he didn't have the best shooting percentages. I like the Tennessee guys, Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield. Those are likable guys, high motor guys that are just good at the game. Maybe people worry about them transitioning to the NBA, but just likable guys. I didn't really consider them top 10, but they're not far out. A guy like Grant Williams not too far out. So yeah, that is Keldon Johnson, another one from Kentucky. Those are guys that are pretty close for me, pretty close. So that's going to do it for my top 10. Let me know your guys' top 10. Let me know your thoughts. Again, if you don't subscribe, please do so. We have daily sports content bringing you a video every single day. We've got plenty of NFL coverage, NBA coverage on the channel. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks for the support. That's going to do it. Goodbye.